Welcome, everybody. John Aravosis here. It's Monday, August 21st, 2023, here to bring you the Aravosis Report, where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. As always, I'm going to get TikTok rolling on my iPad. Ukraine war update live. There we go. And we'll wait 2 minutes or so for folks live on TikTok and YouTube because you can. And introduce yourselves, say where you're from. I'm in Chicago, normally Washington, D.C., but visiting Chicago for the month. Anyway, and all is well. Actually, nice day today. Tomorrow's going to be nasty in the Midwest for the next 3 days, but otherwise, things are nice. Thanks, Exceed, for the gift. How's everybody doing? Hot Kansas. Oh, just wait. It's only going to get worse. Yeah, copies. Check. Yeah, check. Hey, Exceed. Hey, Ash. My voice is big. I'm getting a little allergy voice the last few days, I noticed. So, hey, Evie. I hadn't noticed it, but I've noticed it's being a little like that raspy, which is my allergies. But oh, what do you do? Anyway, yeah, lots of good news today. Actually, lots of good news today. Today's a good news. So, Callum is getting buffering on TikTok. Anybody else? Or is it just Callum? Thank you, David. Brian in Scotland too. Exciting. Marie, merci. Or Jacques, as I recall. Thank you, Annette. Is it still buffering or no? Well, let me know, mods. Thank you, Lee. If it's really bad, I could always go out and come back in. Thank you, Big Hawk, for the gift on TikTok. Oh, so what's going on, folks? It's always funny after a weekend coming back. It's fine. I always feel like a little bit rusty coming back on after a weekend. It's very weird. I think there's like you get into sort of the role of how to do this during the week. It's very strange. But anyway, I am sitting here with my little dog on the chair next to me. She's doing fine. Thank you, John S. She had her yearly visit to the vet today to get her shots and stuff. So she was not very happy. So what do you do? But she's doing okay now. Hello, I know. Hi. Anyway, we'll get maybe another half minute, guys, and we'll get started. Like I said, we like to wait a little bit of time just for let folks join in because it always TikTok and YouTube send out the messages and then it takes people a minute or two to show up. So we'll let them do that. Anyway, oh boy. But yeah, I don't know what else is going on. Nothing. I had did she guys? She got her treat. I think she got her treat. You're okay. You're right. It's funny. She's like a little afraid. Oh, the big test. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Okay, hang on. Thanks for the gift, Tomcat. Wait, before we start the show, this was the big test. I got her a new like cat bed this weekend. I was out with my sister and I'm at mom's, so needed a new bed. Glitched on me. You guys can see it. There you are, YouTube. You can listen. Dog is liking her new cat bed. Phew. All right, that's a good sign. I was a little worried. Literally, we were waiting until right now. I am starting the show, but I'm going to show you one more photo since we do have a show where we share personal stuff. This was yesterday in the new cat bed because I was trying to get her to use it, and this was Sasha's first attempt yesterday using the cat bed. That I got her. It didn't quite fit. This was yesterday's attempt where she sort of sat in it. The best part was she sat in it, the bed moved up, and she thought that was very cool. So she sat there for 5 minutes, like cleaning herself halfway in the bed with the bed tilted up. I was like, no. Whereas now she's totally laid down. This is good. Okay. Now I can officially start the show since the dog is liking her new bed. All right, welcome everybody. John Aravosis here. Today is August 21st. This is my show where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Welcome everybody on TikTok and beyond. The way the show works, as you guys might recall, is I talk about the news for the first half of the show, and then second half of the show, you guys ask questions. You can pose questions on TikTok, of course, through the comments at the bottom, on YouTube and everywhere else. Oops, my hair is exploding under the comments there. I also will take super chat questions on YouTube as a way of basically supporting my work. Thank you, Ellie. Anybody who buys a super chat question on YouTube by clicking the $ at the bottom of the screen, and then it gives you instructions. Thank you, Ellie and Karuna. I will always get to those questions immediately as the next thing I talk about as my thank you to you. And on TikTok, whenever I see those GIFs, the big ones that fly on the page, I will try to do a thank you like LWD right there. If I see the gift, I will always try to do a thank you. So public thank you for you guys. So thank you, Elizabeth. So let's get rolling. Let me start with a quick update on our ambulance fundraiser. So we have been raising money the last couple days for, thank you, Jason, for an ambulance, 3 ambulances in Ukraine. Vlad corrected me that they actually are ambulances that service the military, but they also service the public. So we're helping sort of dual use here, helping the military and the public. And basically, we were contacted by some folks in the military working with the ambulances, and they need new tires. Spare parts, but especially tires for the ambulances. They sent us a lot of videos, which I posted on Discord. Thank you, Elizabeth, showing the ambulances actually being used by the military to help wounded troops. In any case, they needed $1,700. We started the fundraiser on Friday with you guys, and we are now up to $1,448 raised. We need another $252, which is not very much, so I am convinced we will make it. Please help out if you can, guys. As always, 100% of your gift goes to help the Ukrainians, goes to the ambulances. I will not touch a dime. And in fact, I ask you to give via my friend Vlad's PayPal. Vlad is in Ukraine. Zero goes through me, and I take zero of the contribution. Nor does Vlad take any of the money, but Vlad is our middle guy who's been handling this stuff for a year now with all the donations. So the way you can donate on YouTube, etc., this is Vlad's PayPal information. You will go to your YouTube, your PayPal, and just give to Vlad directly. Vlad knows that any money coming in right now is meant for the ambulance fundraiser. And for you folks on TikTok, you can go to my profile, click the Linktree link, and the top link that comes up after that is for the ambulance fundraiser. It too provides you Vlad's PayPal information. Now, again, you don't click through to Vlad's PayPal. It doesn't work that way. I think because he's in Ukraine, they don't get sort of all the benefits we get. But you will see Vlad's PayPal information, and when you go into your PayPal, that is the information you will send the money to. Thank you, Chief, for that. 100% of the donation. By the way, as I'm starting the show, as is traditional, my nose is itching because what would it be if we had a show? If anybody ever comes on and their nose isn't itching, you will know it's not really me. It's a fake show. But anyway, thank you, Martin. We have raised, just to remind folks, anybody who's new here may not know, we have raised about $100,000 over the last year for Ukraine. And that is money, 100% of which has gone to Ukraine. I have not touched any of it. I have not taken a dime. All of that's gone to Ukraine. So this is the same thing. So if you can, please, I'll make the final pitch. I will do it again at the end of the show. We need $252 more to help ambulances in Ukraine for the military and others. And you can find the information via the link in my profile on TikTok. The mods can tell you, and you guys have it at the bottom of the screen. Okay, let's get rolling, kiddos. So the lots of news today, all of which I don't know that there's any bad news for Ukraine today. There's a little bit of bad news for Ukraine. There was a really horrible Russian attack this weekend, which we'll talk about, but that's it. That's okay. So the Ukraine this weekend, among other things, blew up a Russian bomber. This was a big deal. They used a drone. They hit a Russian airbase that was actually in sort of northern Russia, 600 kilometers away from Ukraine. That's about 400 miles away. Let me show you this, okay? This is, hang on, here we go. You will see, well, I will show these guys first and then you guys. Look at this map. Ukraine is at the bottom. There's Kyiv, right? There's Kyiv, there's Crimea, then you get Belarus. That dot at the top is the airport that the Ukrainians hit. Moscow is the circle on the right. If you look to the right of the red dot and below, you see Moscow. That's how far away it is. I mean, Ukraine is down here. That's how far away it is. For you guys, check this out, okay? Ukraine is down here. That's Moscow. The red dot is what they hit. 600 kilometers or 400 miles. Huge distance. Now I'm going to show you the photo because it was a glorious photo. The Russians, which sort of cracked me up, the Russians claimed that a drone was shot down over the Russian military airport, and it slightly damaged an airplane. I want to show you the airplane that was slightly damaged, okay? This is the airplane that was slightly damaged. Okay, I'm going to show you guys, all right? That's the slightly damaged. This is the cockpit of the airplane that is slightly damaged. Look at the cockpit sticking out of those flames, okay? Check it out. That would be the cockpit of the airplane that is only slightly damaged. I'm going to guess that that airplane is not going to be flying anytime soon. I mean, it's look at it is a tremendous photo. This was a big deal. This is well, it reminded me of Monty Python, right? I'm like, it's just a flesh wound. This was a big deal. This airplane is one of the planes that's used to attack Ukraine regularly with the missiles. It's one of it's a good airplane. I mean, it's a good Russian airplane. And again, because the Ukrainians were able to hit so far away, 600 kilometers or 400 miles, it raises the question. And I did read one report that hinted at the fact that it may have been Russian partisans who did it. Thank you, Ginger. Or I was going to call you Ginger. I'll call you Ginger. Why not? Thank you, Ginger, for that. Very interesting. Oh, and Soren as well. Thank you, Soren, too. Very interesting report that seemed to allude to the fact that the Ukrainians may have used Russians to do the attack. Russians from sort of inside Russia who got nearby with the drone and then may have taken off. So Ukraine may not be flying these things from Ukraine. And by the way, doesn't matter, right? I mean, what's important is that you are able to hit your target. It doesn't matter if your drone flies all the way from Ukraine or whether you give it to a Russian who within Russia maybe gets near the airport and then takes off with the drone and attacks. And by the way, a lot harder to defend the base if you're nearby and you take off. In any case, beautiful, beautiful attack. The Ukrainians say 2 other planes were damaged, or 2 other aircraft were damaged in that strike. And then the next day, which would have been Sunday, yesterday, 2 more aircraft were damaged in an attack on an air base in Russia's Kaluga region, which I did Google. Hang on. I did Google Kaluga. Hang on a second. A region that is closer. Kaluga. Here we go. Kaluga, which is a region that is closer to Ukraine. So you can see there the red dot. You can see where Moscow is. It sort of tells you, because the other one was northwest of Moscow. This is southwest of Moscow. Here, I'll show you guys. So you can see southwest of Moscow is the red dot now, whereas the other one was up and to the left of Moscow. This is down and to the left. So it's closer to Ukraine, maybe a couple hundred kilometers. Anyway, good deal. So the other, well, there's many good. Today's a really good news day, by the way. So keep the gifts coming on TikTok. I deserve gifts today for a good news day. Russia's unmanned space probe, and I say unmanned because therefore we are allowed to laugh heartily. If there were men inside and women inside, we wouldn't want to laugh because we don't like cosmonauts dying. What we do like is Russian aircraft that have no cosmonauts in it crashing miserably on the moon and self-destructing. Russia, for the first time in 47 years, thank you, Ellie. For the first time in 47 years, Russia decided to get back in the space race. Thank you, Marcy, for the gift there. And Russia decided it was going to launch an unmanned spacecraft that was going to land on the moon. And as they called it, Russia Moon. They even came up with their own hashtag. Thank you, Dawn. They came up with their own hashtag on Twitter, Russia Moon. Thank you, Elizabeth. And, well, it gets into orbit on Sunday. And it's supposed to, my favorite was they said, it was supposed to do a soft landing today. It spun out of control and crashed into the moon and is destroyed. Thank you, Happy Beach. Really bad. And the articles on it have been just really bad too, because the articles about it are basically saying exactly what you would think, which is, this is a metaphor for Russia since the Soviet times, or during the Soviet times. I mean, they were a brutal dictatorship. They didn't have food, but they had, they didn't have an economy, but they did have at least science and culture. Now, out the window. Thank you, Martin. So that was good news. Other really big good news this weekend, F-16s. Sip of water, and we'll continue. So lots of good F-16 news for Ukraine. As you guys know, Ukraine is trying to get American F-16 fighter jets. It really needs them. And there has been sort of a long drawn out process of trying to get them approved from the Americans, training, blah, blah, blah. Well, Zelensky was in Denmark today. He might have been there yesterday too. I'm not sure. Thank you, Adventurers, for the gift on TikTok. And announced last night, I think, or this morning, Zelensky announced that Norway, let's start with Norway first. Okay. Thank you, Marion. Norway, I'm trying to think how to put this. For sure, Ukraine is getting several dozen F-16s from Norway and Denmark. How many is a point of contention, because there were initial reports saying 42 F-16s from I didn't say Norway, the Netherlands. I'm sorry, the Netherlands and Denmark. There were initial reports that the Dutch were giving the Ukrainians 42. And even Zelensky said this, which would be a huge deal. The issue now is the Dutch were then said, well, we actually need some of them to continue doing training or whatever, so we probably can't give up all 42. Still, several dozen seem to be what the Dutch are going to send. Not the Dutch. Okay, I am just driving myself crazy here, driving myself nuts here. Yes, Holland. Can I just say too, the whole thing with Holland and Dutch and Netherlands confuses the hell out of me. I mean, I studied this stuff for a living, so I get it. I get the difference, but it just I start seeing Dutch and Denmark and all the different names start going, and then Netherlands and Norway. It's like a disaster. All right, I'm just going to read this to you. Maybe 42 or fewer from the Dutch, 19 from Denmark. That's what they're talking about. So 19 are expected, hopefully from Denmark, and several dozen at least from the Dutch. That could get us to 40, 50 or more aircraft. That's huge. That's huge. Now, some of these aircraft may be, I forgot what they called them. They called them like Christmas trees or something like that, basically meaning some of them may not be flight worthy, but they would be giving them as spare parts so that basically they've got the backup. Right. So big deal. This is huge. The also announced Ukrainians that 70 Ukrainian military officials have already arrived in Denmark for training. They said that the training has already begun in Denmark, which is great. Now, one thing that I thought about, and the media did not delve into this, sort of an obvious question was, of the 70, how many of those are fighter training and how many of those are maintenance training? Because I forgot what the numbers were, but I want to say, I forgot if it was for every plane, if you need 5 mechanics. I'm trying to remember now what it was, but you need mechanics, you need logistics, supply people, etc. So I don't know, 5 to 1. Okay, Charlie, that's what I thought I'd read, Charlie. Okay, Charlie is saying 5 to 1 on TikTok, Charlie and Sandy. So I don't know of those 70, how many, actually, that's a great, Newmanon made a good point. Think of NASCAR. Think of the race cars when they pull into the pit and you see like the 4 guys or 5 guys come up to each one takes off a tire, this kind of thing. So a similar idea in that sense. What I don't know is how many of the 70 that were there are pilots versus everything else. One interesting point that Zelensky made, he said that female pilots are among those being trained in Denmark, already being trained, which is very cool too. Women F-16 pilots. So we already knew that Ukraine was very equal opportunity in terms of its military. 1/5, 20% of the Ukrainian military is women, but pretty cool that they're training F-16 pilots as well. I thought that was kind of neat. Let me see here. Oh, and then Zelensky was in Greece today. The Greek prime minister also committed to helping do training with Ukrainians and F-16s. Now, that's important because a lot of the training programs, what I was reading, there's only a few, I think because of the flight simulators, maybe there's only a few people they can take at a time, like 6 people at a time. Initially, I was reading that for the European training, like they could only do 6 pilots. I mean, so Greece doing some is very helpful. America said that they would be potentially willing to, they said they'd be willing to do some training. So hopefully the US will do some too. In any case, like I said, I'm just curious how many pilots. Now, the question is, if training starts now, we know the training is going to take at least 4 months. That puts you into January. Well, what do we got? August, September, October, November, December. November, December. Thank you, Elizabeth. Maybe December, we've got some people that are trained. The planes get to Ukraine. The latest I read actually said just that. Maybe they would get some planes by the end of the year, maybe. So I still think, it's going to be something more like waiting until January, February. Let's see. Anyways, this is good news. Let's hope it doesn't get drawn out again, but this is good news. Ukraine launched 2 more drones over Moscow this weekend. This was interesting too, because Ukraine has been, I don't even mention some of the other stuff. There was another Ukrainian attack somewhere else in Russia over the last day. I just didn't even mention it because I think the Russians may have thwarted it. Typically, when the Russians don't thwart it, we see images like the attack on the bomber when we actually see the plane blowing up. What is interesting about that, though, is that the attack in the last day against Moscow was close enough to the airports that 2 of Moscow's big airports had to get shut down for 2 hours. Now, this is interesting. This happened last week, too. And I was talking about it at the time of, wouldn't it be interesting if Ukraine were able to continue these attacks in a way that started making it less safe, less sure, certainly less safe, but less certain to use, less sure to use Moscow's airports, and whether, just like flying into Ukraine, one does not. You fly into Poland, you fly into Slovakia, you fly into Hungary, and then you take vehicles, vehicles with wheels into Ukraine, whether the same thing might happen with Moscow, that the Ukrainians are able to make the airport dangerous enough that people aren't willing to fly. Would be interesting. But the fact that it got closed down for 2 hours was certainly good news. Prigozhin. So Prigozhin showed up again. Kind of interesting. So Yevgeny Prigozhin, is the Russian oligarch, the Russian billionaire who runs the Wagner Group. Thank you, Dawn, for the TikTok gift, and Trolytic. The Wagner Group are the mercenaries, the Russian mercenaries that tried to overthrow Putin like 2 months ago now. Well, Prigozhin's the leader. He's the one that negotiated the deal with Putin and supposedly was going to be in exile in Belarus. Well, Prigozhin has not been talking much lately. He's usually very happy to talk. He just popped up today in a video from Africa, and he's wearing the whole garb, the hat, standing like in the desert, and talking about how, this is such a great opportunity for Russia to free Africa with, the Wagner Group, make Africa great again, this kind of garbage. What was interesting to me was, hang on a second. What is 50 Celsius in Fahrenheit? The temperature where he was allegedly 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 50 degrees Celsius, which is 122 degrees Fahrenheit. And he's standing there doing a video like, I love it here. I'm guessing he doesn't love it there if he's standing in the 122 degree heat. That's insane. 50 degrees centigrade. That's crazy. I think what we are witnessing is part of Prigozhin's. When I saw that, I sensed Prigozhin being a step down, right? Prigozhin reporting from the 122 degree heat means Prigozhin got slapped. I think he got slapped around by Putin a little bit, and Putin was like, "Okay, you've had your fun bopping around and going to the conference and stuff. Now do some work in Africa." So Putin pretty much pushing him to Africa to sort of get him out of the way, and sending him somewhere where at least he can't do much damage to Russia, because you can't really launch a coup from Africa unless you're launching an African coup. Counteroffensive news, not too much since last week. Ukraine says it's captured 3 square kilometers, don't know what that is in miles, of land around Bakhmut over the past week. I'm guessing it's not very different from 3 square kilometers, miles. Ukraine has established control over the center of Robotine, which is one of the main town, not the main town, the big, what's what I'm looking for? The big victory of last week was taking over Robotine, which is more or less around here in Zaporizhia province. This is one of the towns they need to get on the way to Tokmak and then on the way to Mariupol. But they had taken the outskirts of the town last week, and now it looks like they've taken the town center, which is great. It's going to take them a while. I mean, we know this is a long process, but again, better to have the Ukrainians advancing slowly than the Russians advancing slowly, right? So no other news in the north with Kupiansk, where the Russians are pushing back. It sounds like the Russians are slowly advancing from what I'm reading. I'm not hearing a ton of news about it, but it sounds like the Russians are slowly advancing. Russia, so one of the big bad story this weekend was Russia used an Iskander cruise missile to strike the city of Chernihiv on Saturday in a really brutal attack. Again, civilian target, big surprise. Chernihiv is up here in the north. Okay, remember, this is the part Russia controls. So typically, this is where a lot of the attacks are happening. They attacked town of Chernihiv in the north, and Russia was basically, they say they were going after a drone conference, which, maybe they were. The only thing is, drone conference is a lot of civilians, but nonetheless, they went after a center where a drone conference was taking place. 156 people were injured. I believe at least 7 were killed. Another really brutal attack, basically, by the Russians. Let me see here really quick. Question from the Viper. If the U.S. ends up pulling support for Ukraine, super chat question, ends up pulling support, will the rest of the West end up following suit, or will they do more? That's a really interesting question. Here's the thing. If the U.S. ends up pulling support for Ukraine, let's say Trump gets elected or somebody else like, Santorum, who's just as bad on Ukraine, pretty much as Trump. Will Great Britain pull their support? No. Will France pull its support? That's an interesting question. France is in an interesting position here. Coming into the war, or maybe the middle of the war. Remember, several months ago, we had Macron, who's the French, French president. And Maddie, I think if you meant to ask a question, please feel free to post it. Or thank you for that, the super chat. But I think you meant a question. If you did, feel free just to write the question as a regular comment, and I'll try to, either the mods will note it or I will. But I'll finish with Viper first. France, several months ago, President Macron said that basically about Taiwan, he kind of gave China the green light to go invade Taiwan, saying it wasn't Europe's interest. But what he was getting at was this notion of Europe has to defend itself, and it has to define its own national security interests, and it has to be sort of there to either go in or not go in if basically Europe needs to make its own national security decisions and not always be reliant on America, right? Now, what's interesting about that is that potentially what would be interesting is if America were to pull support, which would be bad, for France to step up alongside Great Britain. Britain, we know, will be good. France steps up and says, that basically Macron sees it as his big chance to have Europe step up and really rally and unite itself around national security policy, a war no less, in Europe, that France gets to sort of take the lead in being a little more hawkish, I would say, hopefully. Now, the danger is that France takes the lead in being France, and Macron turns into his old negotiating self, right? But nonetheless, France is an interesting question. Germany, I worry about. I don't know. I think the Brits will be the most outspoken in support of Ukraine in Europe. The Canadians, who knows what they do if we pull out. But it's not going to be good news. It's not going to be good news if we pull out, because then you also get the issue of the F-16s and everything else. What happens to them? Poland. Well, we know Poland will be great. We know Eastern Europe will be great overall. The Baltic countries, right? We know that. But I'm not sure. I guess what I mean is we already know which countries will be pretty good, right? And we know which countries we're waiting to see, like France and Germany. What we don't know is what does that translate into, right? What does it mean in terms of what Europe does going forward to literally concretely, what does Europe do in terms of supporting Ukraine, and what happens to Europe's position on supporting Ukraine? Does Europe then switch to a negotiating position rather than we're going to arm Ukraine until they win this war? That I don't know. Okay, so Maddie, you did you have a question? No question. Oh, thank you then. That was very nice of you. Thank you. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And Brian, thank you for the Aflac. We always say Aflac when we get the duck. Thank you, Jetta Mom. Well, thank you. That was very nice of you. I appreciate that. These are, so Malayothos was asking, I'm just going to say, because we're talking about F-16s, I've still got more news to report, but is this a whole new fleet of F-16s, or are these the F-16s we've been hearing about for months? Sorry if I missed that was working. What's the ETA of seeing them in action? I'm not sure what F-16s you've been hearing about, but these are the F-16s. I mean, it's not like they've discovered now 60 more F-16s, right? No, we have not known whose F-16s were going to step up. We were hoping Denmark. I think we were hoping Netherlands. Were we hoping Norway too? I don't recall. So I think this would be the F-16s we've always been talking about. Now, they're not new F-16s. I mean, they're old F-16s that I believe several of the European countries were going to be phasing out. So there's that aspect too, if you meant new in that sense. Let me look here. All right. Okay. All right. Okay, let me keep going here. Okay, let me do a quick pitch for my subscriptions, and then let's talk a little bit about Ukraine's grain exports. So one of the ways you guys can help me, which I like to pitch for, is becoming a monthly subscriber. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I do this work full time, and I basically rely on you guys to pay my bills. So thank you for that. But I mean, this is my job. I mean, instead of doing consulting work or writing work or whatever, I do this full time, and then I find creative ways with you all to to bring the money in. And one of the ways we do that is through the subscriptions. And we've got really cool subscription options for you, basically to be able to, thank you, Pedro, be able to donate monthly. I mean, obviously, the one-time gifts are very helpful anyway. Thank you, Brian. Speaking of which, the pinata on TikTok, all the gifts you guys give, the questions you ask, actually are very valuable. So thank you. And sometimes, to be honest, sometimes the individual gifts you give are much more than a monthly donation, even, meaning it could take several months of a donation to equal your gift here. So whatever works, I appreciate it, because honestly, it's not clear what's better. But the monthly thing can be nice over time because you get a sense of how much money is coming in. And if you've got enough monthly subscribers, you don't worry as much about, hitting you guys up for gifts. In any case, on TikTok, you guys have two ways of becoming monthly subscribers. One is the Sasha News Network, as we call it, after my dog. It is the TikTok subscriptions. TikTok has its own subscriptions. You can somewhere on my page, the mods can tell you, maybe on my page right now, the live, you can join. You can see the folks that have SNN after their name, Christian, Callum, or right before the name Webb, Deb, and blah, blah, and others. Those are the folks who are the monthly subscribers. For you guys on YouTube, there's YouTube subscriptions. And you guys can find those via the $sign by the comment box on the screen. Click that. You'll see super chats, super questions, and memberships. Click memberships, and it gives you the membership options. For all of these other than TikTok, TikTok subscriptions are still a little difficult because it's a little broken and they don't work well enough with YouTube, with Discord, I should say. But all the other ones, if you get a monthly subscription with them, you will also be a VIP subscriber over to our Discord community, which gives you access to our VIP auctions of really cool stuff from Ukraine. Thank you, Jetta, for the gift. And also gives you access to our Saturday morning show. Actually, all of you who are monthly subscribers, thank you, Frank, even TikTok, have access to our Saturday morning show. But TikTok is working on the connection of TikTok to Discord. And once that gets fixed, all the TikTok subscribers will also have access to the VIP Discord. All right. That was very confusing. Bottom line is there's a number of different ways. There's even Ko-fi, which you guys have at the bottom of the screen, another service we can use, and you'll be a VIP, have the Saturday show, etc. Same thing with you guys. You can also use Ko-fi, which is just like Patreon. You can find all those links in my bio. Linktree, click it. Ko-fi is the number 2 link. Another way to help. Okay, I'll stop that pitch. Bottom line is consider a monthly subscription. If you want to know how, let me know. Or let some of the mods know, we can fill you in. All right, back to the news. This was interesting. Okay, remember last week we were talking about Ukraine testing out the grain corridor? We were talking about the fact that the Russians basically had threatened to blow up any Ukrainian ships exporting grain from Odessa and nearby ports here in southern Ukraine. The Ukrainians, for the first 3 months, really, of the war, thank you, Tom, from February to July, that's 6 months? Actually, that's even more months. So from February to July, the Ukrainians had shut down all the grain exports, threatened to blow up the ships, and the ships refused to, export from Ukraine. Finally, there was a grain deal in July of last year, went until July of this year. The Russians pulled out again, threatening to blow up Ukrainian ships again. Well, Ukraine established a sort of experimental grain corridor that comes along the coast here and hugs very close to the coast of Romania and then Bulgaria. And they were able to get a ship to, thank you, Groovy. Yep, you can also use, Groovy just reminded me, if you're on Twitch, you can become a member as well, get all the same benefits, and you can use your Amazon Prime account on Twitch to subscribe to my @Aravosis Twitch account, and that also supports my work, and also will give you VIP membership in our Discord. So lots of fun, and it's free for you, so to speak. So there was a ship that was stuck in Ukraine since the war broke out, so a good year and a half. The Ukrainians were finally able to, actually, I think it was up here in the Danube, were finally able to get it to come out and safely escape the Russians. Now the Ukrainians want to use that as a corridor to do actual grain exports. They're talking to insurers on how the ships can be insured. The problem is, it's not clear how Ukraine ensures the safety of these ships. Around here, and even around, I forget if it's down to here or wherever, Ukraine's sort of air support can do that, right? Their anti-air systems, etc. The problem is, how do you do it like beyond there, or their cruise missiles can attack the ships, etc. And this has been something that I was reading today on Sky News. I think it was Michael Clark at Sky News, one of their military experts, who said just that he felt like Ukraine could probably defend. I forgot if did he say 100 miles? He may have said 100 miles out that Ukraine could defend. I want to see here just to look at what he had said. 160 kilometers. So that's about 100 miles out that he thinks Ukraine could defend. Beyond that, he doesn't see how they do it. So it's not clear what this corridor actually is and how Zelensky thinks the ships can be protected. I don't know. I wonder to some degree, too, whether we're still not seeing Zelensky play a little bit of a game here, a smart game here, where basically I think Zelensky wants grain ships to go until a grain ship gets struck by the Russians. And when a grain ship gets hit by the Russians, Zelensky says, turnabout is fair play, and he starts going after ships going to Russia, to Russian ports. He'd have to be careful because the West may not like it, but I think he's just waiting for the Russians to blow up a commercial ship going to his port. All you need to do is blow up one going to a Russian. No, I know this is not nice, but we're talking war here. But all he needs to do is blow up one commercial ship going to a Russian port, and no commercial ships are going to Russian ports ever again. So it's an interesting idea. Dark Irish, thank you very much for your super chat. Very generous as well, I may say. Dark Irish asks, if F-16s are really good for air-to-air, will this open the door for possible A-10s coming into play? Okay, that's come up before. Do any of you guys who really know Air Force, can you tell me what do you need for the A-10s? So A-10s are this, I will tell you from a layman's perspective, slow plane called Warthogs. They're used for killing tanks and I assume other vehicles on the ground, and they're very good at it. The problem is they're slow and can't defend themselves very well. So you need F-16s and other things to defend the Warthogs. My question is, if they get F-16s, can they then use the Warthogs? Or are the Warthogs, the A-10s, still in too much danger? So what's the question on there? But the question is that they've got F-16s. Can the F-16s provide sufficient support for the A-10s? Or is that not enough? Just looking here. Callum says A-10 with F-16 would be the ideal team. Okay, so that's how you do it. A-10s can take a beating. A-10s require complete air dominance. That's something else entirely. I am in Chicago. That's something else entirely, though. Yeah. Ezra says A-10s need almost no anti-air on the ground, but virtually any anti-air, and they are done for. Daniel says F-16s are multi-role. A-10s are ground attack. Yes, F-16s could enforce. Okay, so it sounds like folks are saying yes, but the F-16s would have to dominate the skies before the Warthogs would be safe, before the A-10s are safe. Is that a fair interpretation of what you guys have been saying here? That's the real question. And Daniel, I think that's what he's asking. Okay. He or she at Dark Irish is asking. Okay. Yes, correct. Okay. So yes, it can be done, but also this is one of those where the Ukrainians need to have enough F-16s. They have to have enough control of the airspace, and they have to be good enough at using their F-16s to really control the airspace well. And that will take some expertise. Okay, well, you never know. Dark Irish, you could be a girl. Who knows? Alas. Or a lassie. Thank you, Flower Lady. All right. And that was interesting. Thank you. I always find those kind of questions interesting because I'm always impressed by what you guys know out there. Okay. A few more stories, then we'll do more questions. Oh yeah. So Institute for the Study of War, defense think tank in Washington, D.C. that we trust a lot, says that was this the Insider reporting this, I think? No, Ukrainian Resistance Center is reporting that Ukrainian partisans gained access to a Russian occupation development document that stipulates a 300,000 increase in Mariupol's population by 2035 through migration from Russia and Serbia, or Russia, particularly Serbia. Now, Mariupol, let me give you what this is talking about. Oops, sorry, Dark Irish. I'll get rid of your question. Thank you for that. Mariupol, down here, occupied Ukraine, right? Russians occupy it. The Russians, this was a town in particular that Putin wanted. It was a population of almost 450,000 or so before the invasion last year. It got down to maybe 100,000. The Russians really destroyed this place. I mean, they were horrific in how they destroyed this. Well, now what Putin's planning on doing is he already got rid of 300,000 Ukrainians, 350,000. They're gone, right? There's only 100,000 left. He wants to move in 300,000 Russians. What does that do? That makes this a predominantly Russian town, because now you'd have 75% of the population is Russian. And then when people like Elon Musk say, well, let's have a poll and ask people how they feel, then Mariupolians say, well, we want to be Russian, because they moved a bunch of squatter Russians in there. That is called ethnic cleansing. That is called what Serbia was doing to Kosovo. Serbia also forced them out, which the Russians have done too. That's what Serbia did. That's what Serbia did, that we bombed the bejesus out of Serbia 20 years ago. 1999, we bombed Serbia to kingdom come. The Serbs don't like it. They still complain about it today. My favorite is the Serbs complain about it today, and they bring it up as though we're all supposed to agree how horrible it was that they got bombed. And they think like we all think this. And it's like, no, you got bombed because you were committing genocide. You were trying to ethnically cleanse the territory, and you got caught, and NATO bombed you back to the Stone Age. Not that NATO is going to bomb Russia to the Stone Age, but it's important to think in those terms when you're looking at what the Russians are doing, and people are saying, well, maybe we should just give that area over to the Russians because it would stop the war, this kind of stuff. When in fact, you are talking about condoning ethnic cleansing, akin to genocide. Just wanted to bring that up. Otan Bot was weighing in a little more about the A-10 F-16 scenario. Why not? He's often very interesting. In scenarios with A-10s on close air support missions, F-16s can accompany them to handle aerial threats, allowing each plane to capitalize on its strengths. Both aircraft have defensive measures, but the F-16 offers additional electronic warfare capabilities for enhanced protection, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that pretty much repeats what we know. Okay, that's good. Sip of water. More stories from Russia on a number of the Wagner Group recruits. These are the Russian mercenaries that were fighting, right, for the Russian military, that have gone back into Russia and basically, they were thugs and criminals, and they were literally criminals, and they then are now finished. Basically, they exonerated them. Putin said, if you join the military or join Wagner Group, either one, or the Russian military, and serve for 6 months in Ukraine, we will wipe the slate clean and you'll be pardoned. These were violent criminals. Many of them had felonies with like 10-year convictions or more. Violent criminals. And they're now telling them after 6 months, you're free. Well, big surprise. They've been going back into Russia and committing all sorts of violent crimes. This one guy, listen to this. Wagner fighter Andrei Troyanov shot the driver of a minibus from his moving car because the driver did not let him pass on the highway to Moscow. The insider source claimed that Troyanov recently returned from Belarus and is unlikely to face any criminal charges, as Moscow police do not, quote, want to deal with the Wagner fighters. So the Moscow police are so afraid of these guys that they're not going to charge them with anything. How's that for interesting? And there's another guy who, I'm not even going to say what he did really nasty stuff, including killing a woman in 2022 before joining Wagner, and then did lots of really horrible stuff to women right after he left the Wagner Group. Final story, which I thought was interesting, is tire shortages. This was from Institute for Study of War. Russian forces are reportedly suffering from shortages of tires for Ural and Kamaz trunks, as well as acute shortages of auto parts for these trucks. A military blogger noted that a lack of new tires, this is why this matters, a lack of new tires may slow down supplies of ammunition to the front lines and will stop the movement of trucks during muddy weather in the fall. The military blogger added that Russian forces face an acute shortage of auto parts for these trucks. That's interesting, because now you're having an impact into how this affects the war effort and all of that. And Sue, funny you say that. I used to get that when I was in high school all the time. That is the funniest. I've told people about this recently and they go, really? That is hilarious that you thought that. And then after that, I got Tom Hanks. I went through my Horshack phase, and then I had a Tom Hanks phase for like 10 years as well. Actually, the final little story I was going to tell you guys is the U.S. ordered all of its citizens to leave Belarus, which is the dictatorship next to Ukraine, right north of Ukraine, bordering Russia, helped Russia with the invasion. Not really clear why now. I'm intrigued that the U.S. is now saying leave Belarus. I'm just not sure why. I mean, clearly things aren't great in Belarus and with the Wagner group there, and they're threatening NATO allies. And you'd worry about the Belarusians possibly grabbing an American to do the same thing the Russians are doing, where they're taking Americans hostage and then trying to, negotiate. But that was something I would have worried about Belarus already. So I'm not sure why now. All right, that's it for the news. Let me, as always, I will give you guys a quick peek at a few of the auction items for this week's auction. One of the things we do to raise money for Ukraine, but also to help my work, is I do auctions of really cool stuff I get from Ukraine, and sometimes stuff that we get here in the States too, but that Americans make, but Ukrainian Americans. And what I've got this week, I've got about 8 different things. I will show you just a couple of them. And as I said, we auction them over on Discord. We've got 2 auction sections. One's a public, it's discord.aravosis.com. Very easy, discord.aravosis, or Google Aravosis Discord, you'll find it. And in the Discord community, we've got 2 auctions, a public auction and a VIP auction. VIP auction is for all of our paid subscribers. So in other words, the monthly subscribers I talked about earlier, right? YouTube, Twitch, Discord, Ko-fi, I always maybe something else. Those are the monthly. TikTok doesn't work yet, remember, because TikTok's broken for Discord, but it gives you access to the VIP section for the auctions. In any case, some of the auction items we've got, one of them, probably the most popular item this week, is a Ukrainian cockade. It's a pin for a formal military hat, and it's cool because it's a Ukrainian trident. And again, I don't know if I've got enough light on it to give you a good sense, but you can see there. I've got it in plastic. This comes apart really easily, but it's really pretty. I thought it was a really nice pin. And I said in person, it's a very pretty pin. But we've got one of these. I've got real Ukrainian military patch, new, not used, but it's a real one that Vlad got in Ukraine. This is like the second most popular Ukrainian patch, the patch that has the trident, which is Ukraine's symbol. They've got lots of different colors, though. You'll see, thank you, Jay, for the gift. You'll see a lot of different colors of this patch, but this patch overall, the trident one, is probably the second most popular patch after the Ukrainian flag. Some Ukrainian spy detector socks. These are socks from Ukraine with words on them that Russians can't say, which is very funny. I just think that's very funny. Size 43 to 46, which I Googled was around 9 to 12 American, but they're very funny. It's things like, was it Palyanitsia, which is a kind of Ukrainian bread. Russians can't say it right. And the other one is the name for the Ukrainian railways, which the Russians also can't say correctly. Was it Ukrazal? Oh my, I can't even read it. Any case, these are very funny. And then the final thing, I mean, there's 8 things, but the final thing is some really cool fridge magnets that are from the Ukrainian post office, and they're designed by children who were asked to draw the world of Ukraine after victory. So it's really cute pictures with doves and fields and moms with their kids, and it's just really cute. You can see there. I'll show you guys really quick, but they're really cute. So it's 5, I think it's 5 different fridge magnets of the pictures from the kids that are really cute. Anyway, voila. But there's a lot more. Every week we do new stuff. Go check them out. I've got a lot of actually very cool stuff coming from Ukraine that I will start auctioning off once I get back to Chicago. Some really neat stuff. I've actually got some really cool parts of Russian fighter jets that were shot down in Ukraine. And I mean, cool. I've got like cool pieces of Russian fighter jets. They're very cool. So once I get back to DC, we'll be auctioning those off. That'll be a lot of fun because they're so cool. I'm keeping a few of them. There's like some of them I'm like, this is too cool. It's too cool of a souvenir. I won't be back in DC till September 9th. So almost 3 weeks. But my friend Damien is watching the house, so don't go rob me. Damien's there, so don't you dare. But all right, guys, let's do the let's chat. Let's do questions or comments or whatever. Weigh in on whatever you want. Jump in on TikTok questions, YouTube questions, Facebook, Twitch, LinkedIn. I can see you all, so feel free to jump in. What do we got? I wonder, Bad Omen says, is Russia decided to go to the moon again because America said it was going to go? I think clearly Putin is trying to grab again the glory of the Soviet Union, right? And the Soviet Union, even though it was a brutal, horrific dictatorship, clearly it had science, it had culture, right? I mean, it had a lot of things, right? As far as, oh, sorry, real quick. So Erica was saying, who do you donate to? So the way it works is my friend Vlad in Ukraine knows all these guys. Vlad talks to the military folks. He works with a couple charities. The charity mostly we work with is Harkovu Mir in Kharkiv. So we've been doing a lot of work with them directly. And basically getting money for them. They deliver meals to people, but they've also been, for example, now making camouflage nets for the military. So we've been supplying them with material for the nets at the direct request of the military. The ambulances, for example, were some military folks that Vlad knows who contacted him. So we've been, my friend Vlad is the one who handles all that side so that he's able to make sure that these are legitimate requests. Yeah. So that's how we've been doing the fundraising. So it's been good. I mean, we've been making sure it's going to real people. Yep. But anyway, what were we saying, guys? I was already forgetting. Anyway, we were saying questions and comments, and somebody had said something I was reading, and then I forgot. I'm forgetting. What was your comment, somebody? I feel bad now. I'm forgetting what it was. I got sidetracked by that. The moon. Oh yeah, I think they are. I think they're going. So Putin's been trying to sort of relive the glory days of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union, even though they were horrible, I mean, brutal dictatorship, horrific dictatorship, oppressed their people, but they had science. They had culture. Now, they also had steroids. And they also basically threatened these people with death if they didn't win their Olympic medals, but nonetheless, they excelled at culture and they excelled at science. Now, what has Russia got? Right? Russia doesn't excel at science anymore. Thank you, Artur. Remember, they had a COVID vaccine that was a joke. Russia's standard of living's been going down. They don't have the cultural stuff, right? I mean, Soviet Union had some big cultural icons. Before that, they had big cultural stuff, the big writers. Now, right? So I think Putin is trying to go back to the glory days of the Soviet Union, and part of that was the Russian space, right? The Russians were the first into space, right? They put the dog, what's his face, right? The dog was in space. I mean, right? Sputnik. I mean, so they're trying to sort of go back to a traditional area where at one point Russia was ahead. Well, they then went ahead and did it, and their space probe, went out of control and crashed into the moon. So, because that would be Soviet dream meets Putin's Russia, when Putin's Russia can't tie its shoelaces, So they were trying to, and I think they were also trying to show stolen culture. That's very funny because Darcia, because one of the things that I always say is the Russians remind me of the Gould. If anybody who watches Stargate, and if you don't watch Stargate, it's kind of hard to explain, but basically they're parasites, and they're parasites who didn't develop any of their own technology, and they not only have to basically attach to a human to operate, to live, but they also, all their technology is stuff they've stolen from other cultures. Borg in a way, but Borg is the same idea. So they can't really claim credit. The Russians are certainly right now, I think the Russians are more parasitic. At one point, the Soviets, they did have their culture and their science. Now, what do they got? Right? Now they just beat up their neighbors. And they beat up their neighbors, and even that doesn't go so well. They're smaller neighbors, Thank you, Cheryl, for the donation. Thank you. Yep, somebody matched Cheryl. Cheryl just gave 25. Actually, I can do a quick pitch for the ambulances, right? So we're raising money for ambulances in Ukraine. 3 ambulances in particular we are sponsoring. They need new tires. We needed $1,700. We have raised, right when the show started, $1,448. We needed another $252. Cheryl says she donated $25. If somebody else can donate, a few more of you, that would help. Once we reach enough, we'll stop the donations. But if we go over the number, if we go over 1,700, then we will give the money to the ambulance folks, and they'll use it for more parts, because they're also buying spare parts for the ambulances. So they'll use, if there's additional money, don't worry, we're just going to give it to them, and they'll have even more money to keep the ambulances going. But these are ambulances that the military is using, and they're being used for civilians as well. But you can donate via the link in my profile. Click the Linktree link, and the first thing that comes up, I will even show you, is my friend Vlad's PayPal information. Because he's in Ukraine, you can't set up a link to a PayPal. I don't know why, but he's in Ukraine. That's the way it works. I tried doing it with him. It didn't work. So basically, you have to get Vlad's PayPal info, and then I'm trying to go here to show you. Get Vlad's PayPal info, and then go into your PayPal and just send it to Vlad. But I'll show you here. We'll click the link in my profile, and the top thing that comes up mentions our ambulances, and it mentions Vlad's PayPal. So you can't click it. If you click it, nothing happens. But there's Vlad's Naprakovsky at Gmail. There's how you spell Vlad's name, 2 different ways, because translating into English never works with Cyrillic names. And there you go. And that's Vlad's info. You guys can see at the bottom of the screen. And you'll just go into your PayPal, and you will give it. Thank you, Stuck in TikTok. You'll just go into your PayPal. Thank you, Aiden, as well. Go into your PayPal and just message to Vlad. Vlad always, whenever we're doing these fundraisers, Vlad knows that it's going, that the donation is going for that. So any money you give, he's going to put there. You can find the link Numenam in my profile. Just go to my profile on TikTok, click the Linktree link, and the top thing that comes up will be Vlad's PayPal info. Okay, just go to my profile on TikTok and click the Linktree link. You'll see it when it comes up. It's easy. Yeah. But thank you guys. Appreciate that. Let me see here. All right, guys, what else we got? But thank you for reminding me about that, Cheryl and others. Hayes says 22% of Russian households don't have indoor plumbing. The only thing is I wonder how many percentage of Americans don't. I'm afraid of asking. What percentage of American households? Oh, that wasn't English. Hold on. What percent of American households have indoor plumbing? Oh no. We have even worse. I was afraid of that. No. It's 500,000. It's not half. I thought it said half. Yes, but what does 500,000 mean? They're not going to tell it. This is an article trying to make it sound bad, so they're not telling us how many that means. Hold on. I do a recap at the end. Hold on. Percent American households indoor plumbing. Yeah, recaps at the end. All right. Come on. Oh, 99.36% of homes have indoor plumbing. Well, okay. I'm guessing we're doing pretty good on indoor plumbing in the US. Wow, 22% of Russian homes still don't? That's crazy. Wow. Thank you, Danielle. Appreciate that. Wow, that is insane. Whatever happened to the Chechens? I'm not sure what you mean. What do you mean? I mean, they're still there. We don't hear about them anymore, other than a bunch of them got into a fight with some Dagestanis last week, and they shot each other. Chechen military guys and Dagestan military guys fighting with the Russians, but they were doing a propaganda film for Russia and got pissed at each other and shot each other, killed 20 of them. So, thank you, Timothy. So that's what's up with them. We know that. Oh, that's interesting. Russia has switched from leaving the International Space Station to committing until 2028. I wonder what that's about, though. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Marion says the Russian statistic may include summer dachas. The only thing is, how many people have a summer home, Marion? Right? I mean, you'd have to have a lot of summer homes for it to be 22% that don't, right? I mean, do what would that be? 40% of the population have a second home? It can't be that many. I mean, you would know this, do they? Or is it more like 5% or 10%? Thank you, Annette. And Vlad's, by the way, asleep in Ukraine right now. So we'll Okay, I should be back for TikTok now. Okay, YouTube, I mean. Okay, I'm back on YouTube. I'm back on YouTube. Sorry, YouTube. All right, there we go. My mic unplugged, and when I plug it back in, it doesn't work. I've got to unplug it again. Um, anyway, the Russians trying to blow up the moon. I think the Russians just simply screwed up and their aircraft, their plane crashed. Um, according to the latest news, the Netherlands sold all their F-16s to Ukraine. It sounds like most of them are going to Ukraine. It sounds like it. How big of an issue do you think Ukraine will be in the 2024 election? Not necessarily a big issue. It depends. If Ukraine loses, it'll be a big issue. This is the danger for Biden. Biden doesn't really want Ukraine to win, but he doesn't want them to lose. He always wanted a tie where Russia and Ukraine have to work out a deal kind of thing. The problem is if this war ends up looking like Ukraine doesn't win, and by the way, let's pretend the counteroffensive goes nowhere, and next year Ukraine has got to settle for something else, right? Okay, tell me the audio didn't die again on YouTube. All right, it's working on YouTube. I'm going to be annoyed. I know TikTok, it's fine, but let me check with the YouTubers. YouTubers, yes. It's always about six or 7 seconds delayed here. All right. Although okay, YouTube can hear. All right. But the I hate this. I've got such a bad like train of thought issue. What was I talking about, guys? What was I talking about, guys? The it wasn't the F-16s, was it? What was I saying? Oh, Congress next year with the election. Yeah, next year with the election. So if Biden, if Ukraine, if the counteroffensive stalls and doesn't go anywhere, and as a result, next year Ukraine has to accept something less than total victory. Ukraine's got to give up territory to Russia. That will be perceived as a loss. It will be perceived as Biden lost Ukraine. It will be perceived as Biden spent a lot of money and lost Ukraine. And I think worse for Biden, people are going to look back at Afghanistan and the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and they're going to look at it in a whole new light because the Biden administration, and I don't disagree with them entirely, but I disagree with them a little bit, would, like to paint Afghanistan as simply being Trump's fault. And by the way, it is Trump's fault, but it's not only Trump's fault, right? Trump was the one that brokered the deal for us to leave. Biden left because Trump said leave. Trump's deal said leave by this date. Biden even went beyond the date, by the way. Trump removed like 2/3 or 3/4 of our troops from Afghanistan. Biden removed the last small percentage. But the way Biden did it was not actually planning enough. Suspense, I see you. Don't worry, I'll get to it. Was not actually, I think Biden didn't do a great job. Having said that, Biden would like the voters to believe that Afghanistan was a fluke, right? The withdrawal was a fluke. If Ukraine is seen as a loss, if people think we spent 70 or 80 billion dollars on Ukraine and they lost, people are going to look back at Afghanistan and say, you know what? There's a pattern here. This guy screwed up that foreign policy. That foreign policy thing became a disaster. This foreign policy thing became a disaster. And even though foreign policy doesn't often play a big role in American elections, losing does, right? I mean, Jimmy Carter, Iran, there were hostages, but I mean, losing big foreign policy things looks bad. So ironically for Biden, he doesn't want the war to be about winning or losing. He wants a tie. The war will be perceived by the American people as to whether Ukraine won or lost. And we spent a hell of a lot of money for Ukraine not to win. And I think he's going to be in trouble on that one. Let's see. Maybe Ukraine does well in the counteroffensive, and maybe by the election, Ukraine's doing quite well. Who knows, right? With F-16s and tanks and everything else. Any word on the flags? No. I had asked Vlad, and he said he was going to look into it. They are not in the batch that Vlad just mailed me. Vlad just mailed me some stuff. And by the way, we do have some new camouflage nets coming. I was very happy to tell you. I'm looking right here. So those just got put in the mail today, which that'll be excellent. And these are real Ukrainian military camouflage nets, which will be very cool. I'm going to say this. I'm being asked. Hold on, Mom. It's saying Mom. Okay. I'm being asked in my live if there's any news on getting flags signed by Ukrainian troops for our auctions. Okay. It says for our options. I really like how bad Siri is. She's just so bad at this. In any case, so let's see what he says. Yeah, thank you for that suspense. But I did ask him, and he said, "Oh, what do you want them to say?" And I said, "Just having them sign would be really cool. It'd be totally cool just having them sign it, you know." So hopefully we'll see. I don't think it's closer to 100 billion. I think it's closer to 70 or 80. I think we can Google and see. I mean, the big newspapers will have done the actual breakdown, but I think it's a little less. I think the people who hate Ukraine are claiming it's over 100 million, 100 billion. I don't think that's right. I will bet you it's 70 or 80 billion at most. Google it and see. No problem. Suspense. Google it and see. But I think that's correct. No, but the troops can do it. There's no problem. I mean, our guys are constantly meeting with the troops and giving them nets. I mean, Vlad just gave me, thank you, Annie. I'll bring this up. I mean, for example, Vlad just the other day, hang on a second, gave me some photos of the troops receiving the camouflage nets. Hang on, where was this? I didn't put them up because we put a lot of other photos of camouflage nets up, but hang on. Here we go. Oh, these are them. This is kind of cool. This is them wearing some of the ghillie suits that our people created. So folks that we've been funding, the suits that they can blend in, that the snipers use to blend in with their surroundings. So these are 3 Ukrainian soldiers wearing the ghillie suits that we helped pay for with our donations. So thank you guys. And with the auctions, I should say, with the auction proceeds. So very cool. But there's also, here we go. This is one of the soldiers receiving the actual nets themselves in the plastic bags. So our guys are constantly meeting with the troops because actually the camouflage nets that are being made specifically for the Ukrainian military. The Ukrainian military says, this is what we need. This is the size. This is the color. And then the folks we're working with do that. So they're always dealing with the troops. So it's very easy for them to go, hey, here's a flag, get it signed. Next time we come by with more nets, give it back to us. So it's not an imposition. Yeah, there's no problem with that. Good point. We don't want to impose on, but it's not. Annie, thank you for that. Does Ukraine have unemployment money, government assistance available to citizens? I don't know. That is an interesting question. What is the assistance that the government is able to give people? Deb is saying they do. What do you know about it, Deb? Not much. Okay. I mean, because you'd think unemployment would be a problem now, A, because people's businesses are being bombed. B, people's businesses are being shut down. C, people are having to move and go to different parts of the country. Well, people who work online can do that. But if you work offline, if you're an auto mechanic, if you're right, I mean, what do you do? Right? All of a sudden you're a refugee on the other side of Ukraine. What do you do? Right? Unemployment payment is small in Ukraine. Yeah. See, that's the concern. I would imagine it's a pittance. Yeah. No, so there's some stuff, but it's not great. You've got to remember, Ukraine is not a rich country. By European standards, it certainly has a rich culture and had a good industry going, but the standard of living was relatively low, I believe, from the numbers. We pulled up at one point what the numbers were, and they were I mean, it ain't Belarus, that's good. But, compared to Western Europe, it was low. So yeah, not good. I also support by buying items on Etsy. I've been doing that too. Yeah, Darcia. Yep. What was Jens asking? Jens, are you guys all talking about the A10s or what? Okay, they're having a private conversation. I'm not sure where to jump in. What else we got, guys? Is Biden delaying? Paul says, is Biden delaying so he can approve them during the election so he looks good? I don't think so. I honestly think there's a couple of things going on with Biden. His people have convinced him this war is very dangerous. Things could spin out of control, right? Who knows? We could end up at a war with Putin. And if we were at war with Putin, it could be World War III. They've convinced Biden of that. So Biden, from the beginning, was trying to give Ukraine just enough to maybe get back the territories that were lost last year, but not enough to get back Crimea. Because if they try to get back Crimea, Putin will get mad and he'll use his nukes. This is what Biden, I think, was told. So that's what Biden's trying to do. Biden is doing this, and Biden is trying to slowly up the aid we give to Ukraine so that each step is so slow that Russia maybe doesn't notice. I mean, they notice, but they don't notice, right? And there's an argument for that. Thank you, Arifa. But at the same time, what would Russia do? I mean, if on day one we gave Ukraine all the stuff we gave them today, what would Russia do? They're not going to nuke us. I mean, right? What do they nuke us? We nuke them, right? I mean, the very same reasons we're afraid of their nukes, they're afraid of our nukes. It would be the end of the world. And they're not stupid. They're not irrational, right? So they're not going to nuke us. What are they going to do? They're going to nuke Ukraine? Really? I mean, I still, and if they do, by the way, then we enter the war and then they lose the war anyway, right? So, I mean, from day one, I would have told them, A, you nuke us, you're dead. B, you nuke Ukraine, you're dead, because we're going to enter the war and you're going to lose. And when we enter the war, if you nuke us, you're dead. So, like, tell me again, Putin, what you're going to do, right? That's gonna respond to me giving Ukraine everything it needs. There is nothing you can do. Anyway, from day one, we should have done that. We should have done it. We didn't. I say the same thing. What would Reagan do and what would Margaret Thatcher do? You know, Reagan and Thatcher, no problem, Paul. Reagan and Thatcher had their issues. I'm not, thank you, Elizabeth. I'm not going to defend them on a lot of their policies. But in terms of their approach to foreign policy, there is an aspect of I don't want to say emoting strength, but you've got to show strength. And you've also got to show that you're willing to use, the power you've got. And this was the thing I quoted you guys the other day. Remember that whatever that British TV show Threads or whatever it was called from 1986 about nuclear war. And one of the women on the show, who was playing a British official, was saying something like, well, we can't do that because there's a chance that could lead to war or something. We've got to back down. And the other guy said, well, that's sort of the whole point of having our nuclear deterrent or having our military is we have to convince them that we would be willing to use it. If we convince them that we will never be willing to use it, then we might as well not have a military because then they know it's a bluff, right? And I feel that way with Putin. You need to say, I realize you like to talk about nukes. We've got them too. You use them, you're dead. Let's just get that out of the way. And like I said, too, you use them in Ukraine, you're dead. Okay? You don't like it. I know. And I'm sorry, but we're bigger than you are and we're stronger than you are. And you don't like it. And you don't say it in public, but you say it privately. So at least he can save face. But privately, you say, Vlad, there is nothing you can do because I will enter this war and you will lose. And there you go. Anyway, good night, Ireland, user 5229. But that's not what we do. That's not what Biden does. I think Biden is using Ukraine as long as he can do to benefit USA. Yeah, but every country does that. I don't blame that. I really don't. Every country, no country gets involved. Almost nothing would you get involved as a leader of a democracy. You can't get involved in things that don't benefit your country. Otherwise, you're not going to win re-election and your people are going to get pissed. I mean, American presidents and any leader should be getting involved in things that benefit their country. I think it benefits America to contain the Russians, right? To help democracies, to stop wars in Europe from expanding, right? That is beneficial to Americans. Yes. So that's what I'm saying. So I don't have a problem with that. Because that's the whole point. They should be, all leaders do that. There's very little you're going to, Jimmy Carter tried to have more of a policy of just, doing good things, but it didn't work so well, Right. Countries don't have friends. They have interests. But that's true, But the point is, that supporting Ukraine is in America's national interest, but our leaders don't explain that very well. Is the Wagner threat to Poland reduced as Wagner soldiers leave? Yeah. There's a question as to what kind of a threat it really is. Institute for the Study of War, the defense think tank I like to cite in Washington, D.C., they don't think the Wagner thing is much of a threat. They just think Poland could crush the Wagner people like boom, like a little, was that Monty Python? The little, and they'd be just, and by the way, Poland could crush the Belarusians as well, but certainly fewer Wagner troops is an even lesser threat. Yes. Exude strength and power. Exactly. We love Carter today. Carter did well with his retirement. No, that's a point too. Sorry, Caps is noting a good point too, which I think is part of the analysis. Biden and NATO don't want instability in Russia because they fear loss of control over nukes, don't want breakaway republics, terrorists to get them. I think there is absolutely an element here of if Ukraine wins the war, Russia becomes unstable, right? Putin gets overthrown. Does somebody worse come along? Maybe, who knows? So the best thing to do is have, we work with Russia, we work out a deal. Somehow we protect Ukraine to the degree we can, but we work out a deal with Russia, and Putin stays in power, and we haven't rocked the boat. But if we help Ukraine win, who knows what happens in Russia? So that is part of the analysis too. And I saw some CIA guys this weekend, former CIA, saying, well, good luck. We can't control what happens in Russia. I mean, we're actually going to try to influence whether Putin gets overthrown or not. I mean, come on, right? And what they said is our analysis should be to do what is in our best interests, period. And let's do it. Having Russia expand is not in our best interest. Going after supporting Ukraine is. Do the right thing and support Ukraine. Don't try to play games with our policy will help or hurt Putin and he'll get overthrown or he won't get overthrown. Give me a break. Biden did say Putin had to go. Yeah, Paul. And then he turned into a wimp after that. So who knows? I mean, not a wimp, but I don't know what that was about now in retrospect. I mean, clearly Biden let it slip, I guess, but he also is way too, Biden, I think, might be more of a hawk personally. Maybe. I still think he's like a transactional guy who cuts deals, I think. But in the end, even though he may have thought Putin needs to be overthrown, he's listening, whether it's his Joint Chiefs of Staff, whether he's the chairman, whether it's his national security advisor, but he lets himself be molded by other people, and they've convinced him that this thing's dangerous, and he caves. So no, he's not. This is not the way I would approach foreign policy. No. Now, again, yes, he's better than Trump. Trump would have been a disaster doing this. Of course, we know that. But this is still not good. This is not, and we could lose this. And honestly, if we lose this, I think it's Biden's fault if we lose this, to be honest, and that's because he decided to do 80% and not 100% of what he knew needed to be done. Not even 80, honestly, 70. I mean, he wants a tie. He wants a tie, Anyway, let's do a little bit more, guys, and then I'm going to go so I can 20. I was going to do Discord tonight, but since it's already 20 after, we'll skip Discord. We'll do Discord tomorrow night. A wet noodle. He's a wet noodle. Exactly. What else? If George W. Bush had been in office, we'd be in Moscow already. Yeah, I don't know about that. No, because did Georgia happen under Bush or under Obama? 2008. Was that Bush or Obama? Who help me out, folks? Do some Googling. Wasn't that Bush? Yeah. So, well, I'm seeing both here, but I thought it was Bush. Was George Obama? No, because Obama came in 2009. Right. The election is 2008. The new president comes in January of 2009. So Georgia was under Bush. You didn't see us in Moscow. So, yeah, no. George Bush, the father, I think would have handled the Russians right. He was the real foreign policy expert. Reagan would have put them in their place. Yeah. Clinton might have too. The Clinton folks, Madeleine Albright, she would have stood up to Putin, I think, but these guys, and the other thing too, they're playing the China thing. They're sitting there and they're going, this Ukraine thing is a distraction. We should be focusing on China. China's the big threat. Ukraine, this is just cut a deal and get it over with. In the end, we don't care. I mean, this is what they're saying. In the end, we don't care who wins. I mean, we care, but we don't care. I think it's a very realpolitik Machiavellian analysis is going on with the Biden administration. And, I think they're wrong because also they're emboldening China by what they're doing because they're telling China, yeah, we'll get involved, but we're still kind of afraid. We're going to get involved, but not that involved because we're really afraid of what nuclear powers might do. And we really don't want to go to war with a nuclear power, right? Why is it so dangerous to go to war with Russia, but we'll go to war with China? Because we said Biden, never go to war with a nuclear power. It's too dangerous, Biden said. Then why would we go to war with China? They're a nuclear power, right? So, all right, let me do the news summary and then we'll go for tonight, guys. It is day 543 of Vladimir Putin's 3-day special military operation. We're still doing our ambulance fundraiser. So go into my profile on TikTok, click the Linktree link, and you'll see my friend Vlad's PayPal information at the top. For you guys, I will bring it up one last time. That is Vlad's PayPal information. Go to your PayPal and send the money to Vlad. But we're collecting money to buy tires for 3 ambulances and spare parts for them. These are ambulances used by the Ukrainian military, also by civilians, and we're helping the military get wheels for them. So please help out. We are just a couple $100 shy. I know a number of people donated during the show, so we're probably very close. If we go over the number, we'll give them the extra money because they, to use for the ambulance. They need a lot, they're always going to need spare parts. So don't worry about that. But we don't want to get short. But I think we're going to be very close after the show tonight. So please do help if you guys can. All right. Ukraine blew up a Russian bomber this weekend, which was very cool, using a drone on a Russian airbase. The Russian unmanned lunar probe that was supposed to land on the moon today landed on the moon a day early yesterday and blew up. So that was kind of fun. F-16. So good news on F-16s from the Netherlands and Denmark. The Netherlands are going to send as many as 42 F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine. The Danes are going to send 19. Anyway, that's a huge deal. Will not be arriving until, of course, the training finishes. Hopefully by January, maybe even February, if we're lucky, the Ukrainians will get it. Thank you, Nate. The concern was that the Ukrainians might not get the planes until August of next year, was a recent Washington Post article. Let's hope it happens earlier. Ukraine launched 2 more drones over Moscow. Prigozhin, the head of the Wagner Group, appeared in a video from Africa touting the Wagner Group's work over there. Kind of interesting because it suggests that maybe he has been sidelined a little if Putin made him go to Africa. Counteroffensive news, Ukraine has captured 3 square kilometers of land around Bakhmut over the last week, and Ukraine has established control over the town center of Robotine in Zaporizhia province. This was a big battle, and Ukraine is still solidifying its gains, and then they got to move further south. Ukraine is considering using its newly tested wartime Black Sea export corridor for grain shipments. This was the corridor they tested last week when they did get 1 ship out, and Zelensky is now trying to see if they can use it to get more grain ships out on a regular basis. Russia has reportedly drafted a plan to conduct ethnic cleansing in Ukrainian Mariupol by migrating 300,000 Russian citizens to basically take over the town to make it so that the Ukrainians can never come back. Institute for Study of War says Wagner Group fighters continue to commit violent crimes after returning to Russia. I gave you a couple examples of that. There are also tire shortages in Russia, which is very interesting for military vehicles, which is going to impact supplies of ammunitions to the front lines and will stop the movement of trucks during muddy weather in Ukraine, which is going to be starting, I think we said early October, maybe we said the mud begins. So in 6 weeks, guys, early October, 6 weeks. How's that for scary? And finally, the U.S. ordered its citizens to leave Belarus today, which was interesting because it was sort of like, why today and why not earlier? But who knows? All right, guys, that is it for the news. It's 6:23, so I'm going to not do Discord tonight. We'll do it tomorrow since it's already been 20 minutes over. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for the gifts. I'm still surprised the trolls did we get very trolly tonight or not so much? Have the Russians decided we're not a threat anymore? TikTok, what do you think? Did we get the trolls or not? Real quick before I sign off, I'm curious. Because I never really noticed them because I try to sort of give you guys the news and not read the troll stuff. Ash says we had some. I don't know. Not so bad. Yeah, they're just they're not trolling like they used to. Anyway, troll here. Hey, Chad, be careful. We've had people who basically made a joke like that and then got banned because people thought they were trolls and they weren't trolls. Be careful. All right, guys. You got a troll, Jens? Oh, on Twitch even. That's funny. Oh, that is funny. We never get them on Twitch. And usually, we used to get a lot of Facebook. I'm not getting Facebook trolls now either, which is fascinating. Don't want to give the Russians any ideas. I mean, they're easy to ban, so it's like big deal. They come. Honestly, I kind of enjoy banning them. They're fun. All right, guys. I'm going to go. We'll get some. Yep, Dobra Nich. Good seeing you, Marie. And we'll see you guys tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern time, US. Other than that, join us on the Discord. As I said, we get a lot of cool auction items, and I also check in with the Discord all day, so it's a good place if you want to connect with me and ask questions or chat. Just make sure you @ me in a comment, and I always respond. It's discord.aravosis, my last name, aravosis.com. All right? Okay, guys. See you later. Thank you. Good night.